Welcome to another episode of Tamra Simon's Live. Today's episode's guest is Rachel Gainsbrugh. Guess what, guys? She is a health professional by day and a rental investor by night. She's an owner and manager of an 18-term luxury short-term rentals with lucrative cash flowing rental portfolio. Can't wait for you guys to meet her. But as you know, first things first.
This is Tamra Simon's Live, where real estate agents from around the globe come together to grow, collaborate, and expand their business. Where we take our inspiring conversations and put them together to create dynamic connections. This is the Real Estate Power Chat.
Welcome. Thanks so much for joining me today, Rachel.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm just so excited. And I cannot thank you enough for creating this platform. This is the place to be. I really hope all of the listeners and the viewers will share it with all in their community, because the information and education that you're putting out there is key. And let's take on 2023, Tamra.
Absolutely. So since my audience probably has not heard of Rachel, let's give a little background of who Rachel is.
Yeah, absolutely. You said it yourself, healthcare professional by day, thankfully semi-retired due to real estate. I primarily focus on the luxury short-term rental space. And although, yes, the portfolio has grown, but my focus is how do I own and operate the fewest number of properties that generates the highest profitability, because I'm a mom, had a full-time healthcare gig, have a whole husband, all the things. So my goal was to leverage, my time capital so that I could work a little bit more on the part-time side and not work, in my business all the time. And that's how we started investing, was in short-term rentals. And when we niched into the luxury space, it just made all of the difference. And that's what I share with the community, especially the medical community that's looking to hedge against some of the burnout that they're feeling a lot of times in the hospitals after years and years of the grind.
I can only imagine. And especially after the last few years that we've had with COVID, they're definitely looking for a way out.
Yeah, so true. And you can only imagine what one or two properties, especially if you position it for short term, what one or two properties can do for a portfolio. It really helps the piggy bank grow much faster than the other asset classes, in my experience. But I know there's some great investment opportunities out there as well.
Oh, absolutely. So how did you get into the luxury space? Because this really intrigues me. Everyone talks about AirBNBs, but nobody really taps into that luxury market.
Yeah, so it started with just knowing the numbers. After graduating from school, we had about $500,000 of student loans, which was like, how are we going to get past this mountain of debt? But as we started to make headway, we really, put our nose to the ground and we just went for it. We started to see the light at the end of the tunnel. And so this was a bit of a knee-jerk reaction. I wanted to invest in something where I wasn't buying a job, I wasn't getting low returns. And so I looked high and low, back where I turned all the stones. And honestly, short term was definitely something I was interested in. And when I looked at the numbers for certain properties that were generating annual salary type of revenue per year, I said, well, what is it that makes these properties so lucrative? What is it that makes it so different? And turns out is properties that were positioned towards the luxury side of things. And so not all of them, thankfully, were $1 million of real estate, but some of them were quite affordable. There were some key objective things that you can do to the property to then position it as a luxury short-term rental, or even a luxury mid-term rental, where you can host insurance guests, those who are displaced from their homes, that have luxury homes, but they need a place to stay while that property is getting repaired due to a loss of use due to a fire or a flood or busted pipe. And we niched into the luxury, and we have not looked back.
That's awesome. I kind of want to dive into that because you mentioned something that's really intriguing. You said insurance.
Yes.
So, say people that have rental insurance and their rental their insurance company will place them. Is that something that, you're able to step in and say, "Oh, take a look at ours."
Well, it's actually homeowners insurance typically is who we work with, but I would imagine rental insurance would work similarly as well. So, say you have a beautiful 3 bedroom home or a 4 or 5 bedroom home, and something happens, and we've been home the last couple of years, unfortunately, when we were like stuck at home. There were issues happening. There were pipes that were bursting, something caught on fire, and say your insurance is Allstate, State Farm, Travelers, uh, they would have to pick up the tab and place you somewhere temporarily as your home would get repaired. And those repairs take anywhere from 3 months to 12 months. We would host these homeowners in some of the suburban areas in our luxury homes because they were within a proximity of their actual primary home where they live. And so if you're targeting those luxury areas and you own a home in those luxury areas, well, it's going to be a similar lifestyle for those individuals who are looking to be placed temporarily, and the insurance would pick up the cost of that.
That's awesome. I
Yeah.
mean, I had, to be honest, I hadn't even thought of that. So I mean, did you just kind of come across that? How did you get into the insurance side of that? I mean,
Yeah.
that's really not something that I've heard a lot of.
Yeah, it is definitely our specialty. We came across it back in 2019 when we were actually looking to host just short term rental guests who are coming to the area to either visit family or to relocate. And we stumbled upon this. I call it my guest avatar, it's my favorite guest avatar, because, with the supply chain and finding good contractors that are going to show up for work all the time, that has delayed the timeline for those projects to be completed. And so we've had the great pleasure of hosting those individuals who are in need and who otherwise would be placed in a hotel or some type of accommodation that they're not loving. So we're able to host them. So we stumbled upon it just one day when the insurance reached out and the guests reached out simultaneously saying, "Hey, unfortunately, there was an accident in the garage and a third of the house has burnt down." It's like, oh my gosh.
Oh, wow.
And so, yeah, so we navigated that process, and we now have a framework on how to work with and attract those types of guests and those types of insurance temporary housing agencies to host those types of guests, because it's a mix. Again, remember, Tamra, I said in the beginning, I didn't want to buy another job. So imagine you're getting almost short-term rental revenue for 3 months, 6 months, 12 months. And these are some of the best guests that I've had the pleasure of hosting, because they're grateful for a place to stay. They're grateful for, the care that you put into your space. You make sure it's set up correctly and it's well stocked for them. So that makes all the difference to them, because they just came from a traumatic situation, some of them.
Well, and what a nice guaranteed income. I
Yeah.
mean, because unfortunately, everyone runs across some mishap that happens as a homeowner. It just
Yeah.
happens. And so, I mean, what a great niche
Yeah.
or niche, however you say that. So now, what would you say is some of the most common mistakes people make when they're, starting to get into the STR space?
So I think there are two common mistakes that are made with STR space. Number one, not understanding the rules or the regulations that govern that particular property. And so let's say the property is in an HOA, right? My mantra is just say no to HOA with the exception of two exceptions. And both have to be true in order for me to even be interested in the property. One of which is the HOA is there to collect the payments and fees for amazing amenities. We have a boat slip, a pool, lagoon pool, just all the things. And you can clearly see evidence of why an HOA is needed. Yeah, we've got some great amenities, not just a regular neighborhood with nothing and you have an HOA. So that's bad news. It's like, oh my gosh, they're just going to be like looking at the height of my grass and measuring it out. And you know how that goes. So just say no to that. So that has to be true for me to be interested. And one more thing has to be true. So two things have to be true. Number two is 50% or more of the properties within that community are short-term rentals in order for me to be interested in the HOA. So both things have to be true. And of course, you want to take a look at the bylaws, the CCNRs, just to make sure that you're operating within the rules and regulations of the HOA. Outside of that is just the regulatory restraints or constraints that are in a community. For instance, some areas just do not have any regulations yet, right? Short-term rentals are very new to certain markets. And so you want to reach out to the county clerk's office just to find out exactly what is the ordinance for that area and what is in draft, so you can get an idea of, you know, what to expect, like a temperature check. You know, you want to read the room in that area. So the number one mistake is the regulations. And the number two mistake that's made is not knowing your numbers, you know, and we need to get away from buying things because they're just cute, right? We need to understand, well, why is it that I am buying income property? Why is it that I'm buying short-term rental? If it is to replace your income, you need to approach it with that investor hat on to understand, you know, what are all the costs and investments required up front, and what do you expect to generate, you know, in terms of revenue, cash on cash? Are you going to leverage tax benefits, bonus depreciation, which is available for short-term rentals? You know, what are all the, you know, what the revenue that's expected? And that's cash, that's equity, that's tax write-offs, those things as well. And just really understanding your numbers. And so I buy and walk away from deals all the time on paper and spreadsheets before I actually transact. So I look at all my scenarios and make sure that it makes sense for me and my goals.
Now, just to give our audience an idea of how you go about doing that, say they're wanting that, you know, you're thinking about doing a condominium and or a townhome, and the HOAs are low. How do you come up with the numbers? How do you look at that so that it makes sense for you?
So I look at a couple of things. I'm very clear on my buy box. You know, I think it's very important to understand what your buy box is. So say you like a condo, say you like a single family home. For me, I prefer single family homes that are a little bit larger just because I can host more paying heads, you know, and that's a trick, because if I'm hosting, you know, adult siblings in my space and grandma and grandpa, I have about 3 or 4 paying units so they can de-risk, you know, that nightly rate. And so if I am to charge a higher nightly rate, then it becomes like a shared cost. And so that's why my avatar is my avatar. So if you're, you know, a gal going out on the town and that is your avatar, you want to host small bachelorette parties or single gals, you know, just really understanding the types of properties that would best fit that avatar is first and foremost, you know, the thing to do is to understand that. The second thing that I do is I go into the regulations. The regulations come before any numbers, before I calculate anything. I'm looking at the regulations. The next thing that I do is I look at all of the costs associated with it. So for instance, if I'm a condo that is beachfront, you know, I need to know anything and everything that is associated with the cost of hosting. If I have a condo, or a single family home that is on a ski lodge, right? I'm going to have different expenses, different costs. So beachfront, my insurance may be higher. A ski lodge area, I may need a snow plow, you know, snow removal. So those are the intricacies that I don't think a lot of people think about. And sometimes you can miss the mark with your numbers there. So everything that goes into the expense, you know, like when I'm looking at the profit and losses, everything that goes into the expense, if I have a special service where I offer trash service up in the mountains, but it's in addition to what's typically offer, you need an extra, trash service, because the last thing you want is for your guests to walk up to a property and trash is overflowing. So these are the little things that you want to add to your balance sheet, really, in your profit and loss statements, to kind of deduct that. So once you deduct all of your expenses from all of the revenue potential, now with revenue, what's great about short-term rentals, there are drivers that you can add to your revenue outside of your nightly bookings. We have upsell opportunities, which is great. We create small shoppable stores inside of our units. Say you have a beach property and you have a closet that's locked up, but you offer sun hats because everyone's looking for sun hats. You offer a bigger bottle of sunscreen, and so you can generate an extra $300-$400 per booking with these experiences. But it's, again, understanding and knowing what it is that you have to offer and what it is that your guests or your potential guests are asking for and what they want. And it comes with understanding the market, understanding the area, knowing your guests' wants and their needs. Of course, you're going to offer them a great welcome package, but anything above that, you have an opportunity to charge. You offer them 3 bottles of water, but you have a case of water. If they want a case of water, well, you can upcharge that for the convenience. So guests are typically spending anywhere from $200 a day while they travel. Well, why not make it convenient for them and tap into that as well?
That's awesome. So now, how many properties do you currently own that are your STRs or Airbnbs?
We actually have a portfolio of 17 right now. We own 8 of them. We're renting 3 of them. And then the others are co-hosting or kind of like property managing that we're doing for others who are investors like ourselves who just do not have the time. And they're in our same market, so they know we have the systems. And so they're interested in us helping them out.
That's awesome. Now, how do you manage all of these properties? I'm sure, that comes to someone's mind of, okay, you have all of these properties. How do you manage all of that?
Yeah, that's the question, right? I don't. It's a team. Yeah, you need a team, a small but mighty team. And so with that number of properties, I have 2 virtual assistants that help me out with the guest communication side of things. So they'll communicate with the guests, they'll communicate with the cleaners, they'll communicate with the maintenance people. And it takes time to build that up, but it is very, very feasible if you just scale incrementally. So I started off I was my own cleaning lady. I was the CEO and cleaning lady simultaneously when I started out, But, once you realize how it is that you want things, you can then train someone to do it that way as well. Or if you're just, crunch for time, you can, outsource that from the very beginning. Once you have your guest communications dialed in, and this is something that we have a operating procedure. I call it the roll out the red carpet 5-star guest communications. So my team, they see all of the questions that have been asked, all of the ways that I've responded. They've created this kind of Google sheet that we shared. They can look for, where the questions that asked and answer it in kind. I think they've reached out to me maybe 7 months ago once because there was a question that they didn't know the answer to. So the questions, they repeat themselves, thankfully. And so they can just use that to communicate. And there's some automations, right? You automate, you delegate, you eliminate. Yeah. So there's some automations with the communications as well. But we do like to be more high touch. So a lot of it is kind of customized as well. So yeah, a small but mighty team is how we manage them.
That's awesome. Now, I understand that you work with a lot of real estate professionals and you help them, get going in this direction if this is what they, would like to add to their own portfolios or to their own business. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so we actually have quite a few real estate agents in our program that have been wildly successful. We have doctors in the program as well. So individuals who just want to create an additional revenue stream. And one thing that I teach my docs and my other medical professionals is really how to vet their real estate agents and how to partner with their real estate agents in order to make sure that they're purchasing property that they're, number one, 100% allowed to use as a short-term rental, and number two, that they really understand the numbers, because buying a primary home for, that first time home buyer is a whole different vibe than buying a short-term rental. And so real estate agents have come through our program as well to purchase property for themselves. And that was an aha moment for me, Tamra. I thought, coming from healthcare, I thought all real estate agents were sitting on piles of real estate themselves. Come to find out that wasn't always the case. So I became passionate about that after I was a speaker at a Keller Williams event where they were like, well, how do you do this? I was like, you're an agent. I thought you had all these properties. And that wasn't the case. And so they've come through the program to understand really how to run the numbers for them, for their clients and for themselves. And I'm so excited that we have last month 2 real estate agents that closed on beach properties that started the program with us. So we're really excited, and they're onboarding other clients, showing them how to do it. They're speaking with their boards, the local boards, to help them to get their permits in place. I got to attend some of those board meetings. There was one in Virginia to oversee, how she was doing that. And so they're really, really excited and really grateful for the opportunity to get this kind of high value training so that they can use it not only for themselves, but for the clients that they've chosen to serve.
That's incredible. Now, what is the name of your program?
It's called the Luxury Short-Term Rental Academy.
Wonderful. Now, can they access that from your Short-Term Gems website?
Yep. If you go to shorttermgems.com, go to Learn with Rachel, and you'll see all of the information there.
Oh, that's awesome. We'll make sure that they have all of your information. So if they want to reach out, they can definitely do so.
I look forward to that. Yeah, I would love to serve your community.
Yeah, because I think, honestly, I think this is a niche that we're starting to see more of as we're, diving into this market. Because I know you're in California, correct?
No, I'm actually in Georgia.
Oh, you're in Georgia?
Yes.
Oh, you're in this. Over there by the sunshine state. I can't even speak.
Yes.
You're nice and warm, and it's chilly where I'm at.
Absolutely.
So let's just to go over the basics, just so that they kind of understand maybe that first step that they want to take. The first thing that they should take a look at.
Yeah. So as far as looking at a property, I actually use a tool. Okay. It's called AirDNA. Okay. And there's a free version. It's called the Rentalizer. If you go to AirDNA Rentalizer, you search for that, you Google it, you can use the free version. It may ask you to sign up for it, and you sign up, but just stick to the free version for now. So in that tool, my very first step is I evaluate what is the probability that this particular market has visitors for short-term rentals. And I get that by adding an address. You can pick your home address just to test it out, adding the number of bedrooms, adding the number of bathrooms, and then and then adding the number of guests. And so the guest count, my rule of thumb is 3 guests per bathroom or 4 guests per bathroom. So if I have 2 bathrooms, I can host 4 guests or 6 guests. And you add that in, and then that free tool will spit out for you your occupancy, your annual revenue, your monthly or annual average daily rate. So what I'm looking for, Tamra, this is, for those who are multitasking, come back to me. The most important metric on that tool is the occupancy rate. For me, the occupancy rate has to be greater than or equal to 50%. Okay. Greater than or equal to 50%. And so I know it's controversial, but that's what I use because it tells me, yes, there are travelers in this area. I had a client who was putting a property under contract that had an occupancy rate of 26%.
Ooh.
And thankfully, it was a couple of hours from me. I was actually traveling in that area. I drove by Tamra, and not only was it just a dead area, like nothing was happening. They doubled down on the fact that nothing was happening because I did see construction. I said, okay, maybe they're building something. It was a tractor supply. So it was like they were doubling down on really nothing is happening here. And so I said, absolutely not. That is what I consider a high risk investment. So number one is just understand the occupancy rate year round. If it's one of these areas, we have cabins up in Alexandria Bay, New York. you have 2 months where it's hopping, the other 10 months it's dead. All the stores closed, the
wow.
restaurants closed down. Like, you would imagine there are places like that. There are places like that. No. Seasonality, like something that has a significant seasonality, I'm not interested. And you may be, like, it depends on where you are in life, right? Some people
Right.
are like retirees, they have grandkids, and they just want this place because it's near and dear to them. But I'm talking about investors who need the revenue, cash flow replacement, greater than 50% occupancy rate. I don't like places that are like high seasonality, and I'm looking at overall market growth, that there's restaurants opening, there's a growth and there's a need. And so that is like pillar number one for me. And we've already discussed regulations. That's very important. The next thing I look at is my price point. I love to invest, and I found the biggest margins when I invest in properties that are 700K and lower. I'm not interested in anything greater than 700K. That is my threshold. I like 700K and lower. And when I do the math, I underwrite it. I subtract all of the expenses from all of the revenue. If I see above 2,000, 2,500 per month, that's my favorite, And so typically, my favorite, we have properties that are around 5K, 6K, 8K per month of a cash flow, which is the best. But anything lower than 2,000 per month, I would say 1,500 you can probably manage, but lower than that, I'm not interested either. Does that make sense?
It does. It does. And I appreciate you kind of breaking that down a little bit. So, but I am so glad that I've got to visit with you and find out more about your business. And we'll make sure that my audience has all of your information. So if they have questions, they can reach out, or if they want to jump onto your program, they can do that as well.
Well, thank you so much for having me. What an honor to be here with you.
Well, thank you. I think this is something that more people need to know about, that want to dive into the investment space, but don't really know which side of that investor side that they should actually do. So I think, short-term rentals is kind of the thing right now. It's something that, more people need to take notice of.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Not only do you get a space that you can host others, you can take advantage and use it for yourself as well. So to me, that's the best of both worlds.
Oh, absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Rachel. I certainly appreciate your time today. And everyone out there that, is interested in investing, and we'll make sure that you have this information so you can reach out to Rachel as well. And thank you again. And we'll see you on the next Real Estate Power Chat. Have a great day. Whoop, there we go.